I'm tired of the euphemistic language that is always being used when it comes to the genocide in Gaza, most notably referring to this conflict as the war in Gaza, quote unquote. To me, the word war implies that there is a proportionate response between the two regions when there really isn't. The death toll in Israel on October 7th was about 1,200. The official death toll of Palestinians killed in Gaza is at least 40,000, though I think it's a safe bet to assume that the real number is a lot higher. Think of all of the rubble from all of the buildings from the bombs that Israel has constantly dropped on Gaza, and think of all of the potential undiscovered bodies that are buried beneath that rubble. From AP News, percentage of homes likely damaged, more than 60%, percentage of school buildings damaged, 85%, hospitals that are partially functioning, 16 out of 36. And this is the most disturbing statistic to me. Palestinian civilians facing catastrophic food insecurity according to the UN. 495,000. This isn't Israel just simply at war with the militants who killed and kidnapped its civilians. The people most at the brunt of Israel's wrath are innocent civilians in Gaza who had nothing to do with the attack on October 7th, who have likely seen family and friends die, and those people are just as likely uninvolved with the attack as they are. And if they're not already dead, they're in a situation where they don't have easy access to food and water. They probably don't even also have a home to go to. Children don't have schools to go to, and most of their hospitals have been wiped out. And yet I'm supposed to believe that Israel is the main victim in this situation? Look, I'm not downplaying what happened on October 7th. I have said this in several videos before. I'm not for the death of innocent civilians, which were most of the Israelis who died on that day. But since I am principled, I can look at what happened on that day and say that is disgusting, but I can also look at Israel's totally disproportionate response to what happened on that day and say that is disgusting as well. In fact, I would say Israel's response is even more disgusting just from the sheer amount of civilians who have been killed, including children. 15,000 children in Gaza have been killed since October 7th, and that's not even counting the children who are missing currently. From ABC News, the number of children who are missing or separated from their families in Gaza due to the Israel-Hamas war, maybe as many as 21,000, according to humanitarian aid group Save the Children. This organization, which has been providing support for Palestinian children in the region since 1953, reports that likely 17,000 children are unaccompanied and separated, and another 4,000 children are likely buried under the rubble based on data from the United Nations and the Hamas-run Ministry of Health in Gaza. So tell me, what the fuck did those children do? Were they Hamas too? Do any of you hyper-Zionists view these children as anything more than collateral damage just to get to Hamas? Your ideology is monstrous and its end goal is the eradication of Palestinian people and their land. Now, I have seen my share of completely mask-off Zionists, some even in the comments under my other videos about this genocide, saying horrific things like there is no Palestinian state and land, Palestinians don't have a right to exist, shit that is completely indistinguishable to what the Nazis were saying about Jewish people. But then there are the Zionists that I think are a lot more common, who think that Israel is fighting this noble fight against a terrorist organization. But the reality is, Israel is indiscriminately bombing and killing Palestinian civilians. Again, many of these people including children, and people in general who had fuck all to do with October 7th, whether you're dancing in the blood of dead Palestinians, or under the delusion that it's just Hamas that Israel is after. The end result is the same regardless. Dead children, dead innocent people. And shit like the snippet I read from ABC before is part of the problem. This clear-cut genocide keeps getting branded as Israel simply defending itself from a terrorist group. October 7th was almost a year ago. We had one day of mass Israeli casualty versus the nearly 365 Gazans have had to endure. And this, of course, is not counting the decades of brewing conflict between Israel and Palestine. And of course, I'm not naive. Israel is one of the United States' strongest allies. And so, it is in the media's best interest to make Israel look as good as possible, even in the midst of reporting the most horrific news coming out of Gaza. As the bombs Israel is continuously dropping on them is coming from this country, and those bombs are funded by the taxpayers. So obviously the United States wants to paint Israel in as good of a light as possible, but that doesn't make it any less disgusting. We don't just have corporate media anymore to paint the narrative. We now have access to countless terrible videos coming out of Gaza, showcasing showcasing just exactly what kind of destruction is happening over there, and what exactly is happening to the citizens over there. As horrible as these videos are, they are effective in making everyday people aware that this isn't just simply a conflict between Israel and a terrorist group. This is an attempted elimination of an entire group of people, and it should be treated as such. Using euphemistic language like the war in Gaza or the war against Hamas does nothing but legitimize the atrocities that Israel is committing. And that's why it is so important to call this exactly what it is, genocide, especially around those who are buying the narrative that Israel is simply just defending itself. These are human lives being taken en masse. They don't have a means to defend themselves, and they don't even have access to basic resources. So if you want to talk about the ability to defend yourself, how about you talk about those in Gaza who can't even get out of where they are and just have to deal with a country who wants to eliminate their people en masse. And feeding into the narrative that Israel is just after Hamas makes you complicit in the mass slaughter of these civilians, including the aforementioned 15,000 children at least. That's all I have to say. Bye-bye.